positive, 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 tunnel vision, tunnel vision, tunnel vision. It's time, it's time, it's time. Today is April the 16th, 2025, and it is 9:31 a.m. Double header, double header, double header. Positive lessons from Pimp, the story of my life, written by Robert Iceberg Slim Beck. And as you can see in the thumbnail, we have the black and white picture of Robert Iceberg Slim Beck standing in front of a luxury car, which is in front of an ice business, which is a brilliant picture, okay? Because his name was Iceberg Slim. What better way to market yourself? What better way to have a standout picture or image than to be taking a picture at a nice place? And he has pictures of him standing on blocks of ice, holding a piece of ice with an ice holder, and him sitting on pieces of on blocks of ice. But I believe this picture was the best picture for the thumbnail because he's standing very masculine and very militant. Okay. And I'm going to just say this. I do not condone pimping in any way, shape, or form. I don't condone, manipulation, in any way, shape, or form that's going to cause abuse in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to just put that out there. I don't condone the pimping lifestyle. I don't condone taking advantage of women, manipulating women in this fashion, okay? I'm just here to give my positive lessons from the book. And in the book, Robert Iceberg Slim Beck, he says that, this lifestyle was not sunshine and roses. This lifestyle is not the best lifestyle. And he wished he would have taken Tuskegee, college seriously, because he had a choice. It wasn't like he didn't have choices, but we're going to get to that, but I'm just going to give my positive lessons from this book. I read this book and I listened to this book, and it was a banger. It was a recommendation by the late Alan Roger Curry. C Boogie. I don't know if shout out to C Boogie. He did a video. That was the first time I actually, looked into Iceberg Slim. He did a video on, the nuts and bolts and nuggets that he learned from that book. But the main person who did a very thorough breakdown was the person who I just did earlier today. Make sure y'all check out that video, my book review 7, Marquette Burton. Okay. He did a thorough breakdown on Pimp, the story of my life. And that was the very first video that I saw with Marquette Burton. He did a thorough breakdown. Look up his breakdown on Pimp, the story of my life. And this is why I'm doing this video, because it's a great follow-up to my book review on the black box that I just did earlier. Check that out. But I digress. Let's get it started. The first positive lesson that I learned was there's consequences for your decisions and for your actions. And that time catches up to everybody. Okay? It catches up to everybody. If you are making positive decisions, you're moving positive, you're going to reap positive results, positive consequences. But if you out here making negative decisions, taking negative actions, then your consequences is going to be negative. I'm going to give you an example. If you out here taking advantage of people, one day somebody going to take advantage of you. If you out here helping people, one day somebody's going to help you, whether you need the help or not. And it's just that simple. Lesson number 2. How you start with people is how you finish with people. If you let people disrespect you in the beginning, they will always disrespect you because you've allowed them to disrespect you. If you allow people to treat you a certain way in the beginning, they're going to always know that they can treat you that way. Okay? Iceberg Slim, in the book, he had a woman who he met named Pepper. I'm giving a little spoiler. And she actually pimped him. And he asked his mentor, how can he get her to fall in line? And he told him, his mentor, how you start is how you finish. And see, I'm taking what I learned from Robert Iceberg Slim Beck from a negative perspective, and I'm using it for something positive. Okay? How you start is how you finish. And vice versa. If you were a person that demanded respect and all of a sudden you let stuff slide, that person's going to always be on the P's and Q's because they know at one point you didn't tolerate that type of disrespect. You didn't tolerate that type of behavior. Okay? Another lesson that I learned was, and this was something that Iceberg Slim's mentor told him, Baby Bell, stop that grinning. Stop that grinning. A pimp or a man of leisure must know his women, but his women should never know him. And this could be used in life. And from my personal experience, the time that I was very cool, calm, and collected, the time that I had a serious demeanor, a serious disposition, a very stoic and polished, outlook, a very masculine and militant outlook, appearance-wise, people didn't really test me or challenge me or make the attempt to cross the line. Because when you're stern, when you're masculine, when you're stoic, when you're cool, calm, and collected, when you have a serious demeanor, a polished demeanor, you keep people on pins and needles. You keep people thinking. You're unpredictable. But once you start, goofing off, being a clown, being too jokative, smiling all the time, people take that as a weakness. Then they're going to start testing you. Then they're going to start disrespecting you. Then they're going to start running over you. Okay? So stop that grinning. And I'm not saying you can't enjoy yourself. I'm not saying that you can't have a good time, but there's a time and a place for everything. You know, I had a guy when I was out and about yesterday. I'm walking, he just out of nowhere just extended his hand, want me to shake his hand. I don't know you, man. I just said all right and I kept it moving. You know? Who knows what would have happened if I would have shook his hand, you know? But yeah, stop that grinning. And it's a time and a place for everything. You know? For the most part, you gotta always keep your guard up in life. You gotta always be on point in life. Okay? Another lesson would be appearance is everything. Iceberg Slim always had his hair curled. He always was dressed to the nine. And see, your aesthetics is very important. And a lot of people think that a pimp curling his hair, a pimp dressing very flashy is more on the feminine side. No, a pimp can't look like the average dude. A pimp has to look top tier. He has to give off the impression of top tier. You see Robert Iceberg Slim Beck standing in front of his car, straight line, tailored suit, okay, jewelry. You see it. See, aesthetics is everything because it's first impression. My barber, she told me yesterday when she first saw me, she thought I was weird. And I respected her for being honest and saying that she judged a book by its cover. Because most people do. If you dressing flashy, if you wearing your money on your sleeve, people are going to think that you got money. If you dress low key, if you dress down, 9 times out of 10, people are going to think you don't have money. You get what I'm saying? So, appearance is everything. That's another lesson. Aesthetics is everything. Aesthetics is about, aesthetics starts with, what you put in your body, what you eat, exercise, and then your clothes. The clothes don't make you, you make the clothes. I can go to the corner store right now and get a white tee, black tee, blue tee, fresh out the pack, iron it, put it on with some cargo pants or some jeans with some nice sneakers. One of these hats I got, and I'm good. I put more emphasis on being fresh and clean and neat than more name brand because I bought name brand clothes and they didn't last. I bought name brand clothes and the material was terrible. The only difference between name brand and regular brand is the name. It's the name. And because other people, celebrities, make it popular. That's the only difference. I'm not saying name brand clothes don't last. Nike's good, Lacoste's good, Polo's good, Columbia's good, but you get what you pay for. But sometimes, you can get you something for, a lower price and it'll last. Or it'll last for what it needs to last for. That white tee will last me for that day. That blue tee will last me for that day. That black tee will last me for that day. And then I can wear it as an undershirt in the house, under my clothes. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Another lesson that I learned from Pimp, the story of my life, was you can't judge people. We all have an origin story. We all come from somewhere. And I'm going to give us a little brief spoiler. Robert Iceberg Slim Beck was taken advantage of by his nanny, which we call a babysitter now. And that shaped his perception and his psychology towards women. Also, his mother, left his stepfather, who was the only father to him. Okay. And I'm not making excuses for why he became what he became, but we all come from somewhere. We all have a story. And none of us have the right to judge anybody. I'm not going to judge where you come from. I'm going to respect it. Now, once you become an adult, you no longer can play the victim of what happened to you when you were a child, what happened to you when you were a teenager. It's your responsibility now to become better because you are aware of what happened. You are knowledgeable. You've gotten the intelligence. You've done your due diligence, and now it's time to come up with a solution. You are no longer ignorant of your situation. Once you become knowledgeable of your situation and aware of your situation, it's your responsibility to fix your situation. Okay? Another lesson I learned from Pimp, the story of my life, is that in life, you have to, and sometimes you get caught up in things that are outside your control, which will cause you to make certain adjustments that you shouldn't be making. You start doing things you shouldn't be doing. Robert Beck started doing drugs. You get what I'm saying? Because that was the lifestyle. Okay? But you have to be very careful on your circumstances and your situation. And not allow yourself to get caught up in the negative, but only get caught up in the positive. The guys that were in the pimping lifestyle, not all of them, but some of them was doing drugs. One of the guys that was a pimp long before him got him into doing drugs. His name was Satin. Okay. And sometimes you could just get caught up in a particular lifestyle, in a moment, in a situation, in a particular atmosphere. But you just have to be careful. Okay. Like I said, not judging anybody. We all come from somewhere. We've all made mistakes. But it's not the mistake, it's the learning from the mistake. It's taking responsibility. It's practicing humility. Okay? Another lesson that I learned from Pimp, the story of my life, was that reflection. Robert Beck was able to reflect on his life once he got locked up, once that lifestyle caught up to him. And from that point, he made up his mind to turn his life around. And he was able to turn his life around and tour off of his books, create a family, get married, be the father to his daughters. He was able to build a family. And it goes to show you that sometimes you have to be locked up. Sometimes you have to be in solitary. Sometimes you have to be in solitude to really think about your life. I just talked about, you get caught up in certain things in the moment. But reflection is very important. And because he was able to reflect, he was able to understand why he had such a disdain toward women because of what happened to him when he was a child. Okay? I'm not excusing his behavior, but you have to understand why the person is the way they are before you can help fix them instead of judging them. Okay? Another thing I learned from Iceberg Slim was that, and this came from his mentor. Most of the things that I'm talking about came from his mentor, Baby Blue. I think that was his name. It's been so long since I read the book. A pimp is the loneliest man on earth. Okay, because a pimp has to always be a step ahead of his women. And as a leader, as a manager, as a CEO, as a Fortune 500, owner, you have to know your people. Okay? And it's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top. People see pimps with their tailored suits, their curls in their hair, the diamonds, the money, but they don't see what's going on behind the scenes. They just see what goes on stage, but they don't see what goes on behind stage. In the same negative sense of pimping, you can take that and use it in a positive sense, as a manager of a company, as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, as the owner of a Fortune 500 company, okay? You got to know your people. You got to know your people, and it's lonely at the top. And there's a cost to being at the top. There's a cost to success. Okay? Okay. And the final thing that I learned from Iceberg Slim Pimp, the story of my life, was redemption. Redemption, redemption. Iceberg Slim was a pimp from the age of 18 to 42. Went to jail. Was able to reflect and was able to turn his life around and wrote this book not to glorify the life, but to educate people on the life, the negative pitfalls of the life. Okay? And I believe that anybody can have a redemption story. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. It doesn't matter if you're down. It doesn't matter if you've been down multiple times. It don't matter if you've been down for a year. It don't matter if you've been down for 2 years. It don't matter if you've been down for 3 years. It don't matter if you've been down for 4 years. It don't matter if you've been down for 5 years. It don't matter if you've been down for 10 years. And it don't matter if you've been down for 20 years. You can get up. That's right, I'm talking to you, ma'am. I'm talking to you, sir. I'm talking to you, boy. I'm talking to you, girl. I'm talking to you, Jack. You can get up. You can redeem yourself. Iceberg Slim did it. Okay? You can do it. And you're going to do it. Okay? Your fire of belief hasn't gone out. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed my positive lessons from Robert Iceberg Slim Beck's life. Rest in peace, Robert Beck. Rest in peace, Robert Beck. Rest in peace, Robert Beck. Thank you for doing the book, Pimp, the Story of My Life. I learned so many positive things from the book. I learned negative things from the book to stay away from. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your week. And until next time, life is a game of chess, and every move counts. Know the board, know the pieces, win the game.